there were 4 of us who took the course. 2 are closely connected to Research Impact Canada, so Thane Chambers and myself, and then 2 others who have more peripheral connection to what we're working in the area of research development. And the 2 who were working in the area of research development were able to use the materials from that course to get promoted and to get better jobs. And so they actually stopped being part of our network, but that course actually helped them to move career-wise. So there were 4 of us. We took this particular course, which was taught through the Center for, in collaboration with the Center for Advancing Research Impact in Society, which is AESIS in the USA, and as I said, Research Impact Canada. And so we'll go to the next one. So the course consisted of a number of days of online modules, a number of speakers, all with expertise coming from the EU, coming from the US, coming from Canada, with various forms of expertise about measuring impact and setting up institutions to be successful at documenting impact. It gave a broad range of options that would be available or could be of use for whatever kind of institution. We, of course, were looking at it from the point of view of things that needed to change at the University of Alberta. And so part of the course ends with, after 3 days of breakout groups with people from other institutions and so forth, there was a capstone project that people from a particular institution were conceived of as needing to work on together. And so as part of our project, and you could pick anything you wanted for your capstone, but because we recognized that U of A did not really have a culture of understanding research impact beyond bibliometrics, and didn't really, or bibliometrics and patents, and maybe some tech startups. So we recognized that there was a need for changing and pivoting from some of the culture and adding in some other cultural expectations, scholarly expectations. So we started with the idea that we would do an institutional scan. So what I'm showing you for the next couple of slides are the slides that we actually created ourselves as part of our capstone project. And then I'm going to give a little bit of commentary about what we thought we were needing to do and what ended up happening. And so, yes, we decided we needed to do an institutional scan to figure out what needed to happen. And so we had no strategy, there's no institutional research impact strategy or plan in 2022. The literacy on what constitutes research and research impact was inconsistent and fragmented, very culturally specific to different disciplines. There was no central champion, even though I was the lead liaison. The person that I reported to was preoccupied with other kinds of things and did not think of research impact as being something to prioritize at the time. There was no vice president of research who wanted to or had the space in their portfolio to target on that. There were a lot of other things happening at the University of Alberta at the time. Any discussion about research impact was highly individuated. So there were a lot, we have Canada research chairs who focus on research impact, but we don't have a centralized theme. Any kind of institutional communications or communicators who might theoretically be helpful in terms of knowledge mobilization were mostly focused on what I like to call propaganda. They were promoting and marketing the institution for the purposes of gaining donors and for the purposes of getting more tuition. So, you know, recruiting students, not really interested in talking about the impacts of research, especially not the impacts of discovery, you know, big, huge discoveries. Or anything but big, huge discoveries. And so it was very difficult to get the journalists who had been hired as communications people to recognize that just getting a grant or publishing a book was something to actually help us communicate to the public. So anything along those lines we recognize was incredibly under-resourced. For example, I was doing all the research impact stuff off the side of my desk. Thane had it written into her contract, but at a very low percentage of her duties, and there were no other people who were dedicated to this at all. We had no full-time personnel at all, and then so we thought about the context. What is the context of what we're working in right now? We had a strategic plan, and the strategic plan had a mission statement, and the plan was called For the Public Good, and there was a very lovely aspirational set of statements in that plan. And we could go to the next slide. That plan there was a change in government, and the plan ceased to address the priorities of the incoming government. And the priorities of the incoming government were highly focused on jobs and training and thinking of the university as an institution that would produce workers who would produce value in terms of taxes and so forth for the province. And so the whole idea of university as a place for the public good was kind of in contrast to what was happening politically in the province. And again, there were no indicators in that lovely strategic plan about, this is where we are, this is what we're going for, this is what we want to do. And I've given you some screenshots of things from the plan, which are highly valued by the faculty. They really liked these things, but there was no way to measure them. And as I say, they were coming up with very clear contrast with what the province was saying that they wanted to hear, the recently elected political leaders. So the province wanted us to modernize the post-secondary education system, and their goals was to create skills for jobs, right? And then, so that was the context that we were working within, but, move forward one whole year, and we have a new strategic plan, which I managed to get a snapshot of some of the goals in that new strategic plan, which was only launched yesterday at 1 o'clock. So haven't had a chance to read through it in detail, but the list of the goals that you see on the screen here on the right-hand side of the screen are things that are going to be moved into the Vice President of Research's own strategic plan. So this is what the Vice President of Research is planning to address, are those 7 points. So we haven't done anything yet. We haven't moved in any way to that because the one plan was launched yesterday, and the VPRI, the Vice President of Research and Innovations plan, is going to be launched on October 24th, because hierarchical, and you cannot, launch a subsidiary plan before the main plan is launched. So then we can go to the next slide. So thinking back to what we were producing when we were deciding, okay, how are we going to stimulate the move towards a culture of research impact at University of Alberta. And so we did a little scan of what was missing, and I've listed some of those things already. There's no central strategy. The culture was very much oriented towards citations and bibliometrics. There was no agreement or even understanding that there might be different ways of thinking about research impact. So the literacy on research impact was quite different. And we recognized that we had some major challenges to overcome because of those things. Among, at the very head of it is there's no clear performance impact management kinds of system. No way to align organizational purpose and so forth. We were using existing measures to validate impact, but those measures were not really designed for what we want to think about. There was also a huge problem, which is what we call FEC, which is the Faculty Evaluation Committee, which is an annual process whereby every single faculty member's outputs, research contributions, scholarly activities are assessed. It's a process that takes up months of departmental chairs' time, and is highly disputed because this is how faculty members' merit increases are awarded. But the amount of money that translates into is ridiculous. And there's a fight between the central, the university organization, and the collective bargaining organization. The union wants to get rid of the annual FEC. The union members definitely want to get rid of it. The university would like to get rid of FEC too, because they recognize it's a huge time sink for, nobody is willing to go to the bargaining table and say, we want to get rid of this, because they're waiting for the other one to do it so they can use it as a bargaining tactic to get something else. So we're stuck with this process where mostly what gets counted is bibliometrics. Some faculties have started instituting other kinds of narrative style measures, but that happens at the individual faculty members level. It's not an institution-wide kind of thing. So it is a huge challenge for creating some kind of institutional change at the institution. Okay. There we go. We can go to the next one. So we developed a plan, the four of us developed a plan, and we started with who we thought needed to get involved. And so we recognized, because FEC, this working contract thing, is so significant, we need the provost office, we need the chief strategy officer, which is so I've given a whole list of titles that goes down to the faculty deans and various faculty members who have specialization in things like measuring impact. So we collected this group that we thought would be allies and the right people to become champions for this process, if we could stimulate something, and started talking to them, but never officially, right? So we had a lot of side table kinds of conversations, and we can go to the next slide. And we decided that what we thought would be the best way to move the institution forward was if we could get the vice president of research or the president to sign DORA. That would be like a start. And I would like to point out that we wanted to do this before Calgary did it. And I'm quite worried that because Calgary has already done this, University of Alberta never will do it, because there's no way we can come second to Calgary on anything. So there are some real challenges there, but we thought this would be the best way forward, would be to at least get that kind of signature going, get recognition of the Leading Manifesto, and then create a kind of a central committee working with those people that we had identified as key movers and influencers, and that committee should report to both the provost and the vice president of research, so that we could create an impact action plan, and then at least identify things like indicators that we could start to measure. We thought that the best, some useful tools that we could promote and begin with as part of assessing the potential for moving towards an impact plan would be to use the health check that David Phipps is the lead on and has published on. And then there's another one that came from one of the people in the AESIS course, Wilfred Meinhardt. It's called the Business School Impact. I forget what the second S is, but it's basically a tool that has been used in a variety of academic and businesses for identifying ways to measure impact and to consider what would be counted as impact, so to develop indicators. And it's very neatly laid out. And so it looked like something that would probably appeal culturally to our institution, knowing kind of how people think. We also wanted to adopt this the theoretical approach that came from Tony Carlo Tanaro is a well-known researcher from Italy who has done a lot in terms of promoting literacy on data and impact. And so we thought these would be the three tools that we could start with and move forward if we could get a committee formed. We recognized that there were going to be some hurdles, and the hurdles would be getting the attention of someone to say, yes, you can go ahead and form this committee. We recognized that the things that were happening at the University of Alberta at the time, I mean, this was during the pandemic, but also it was during a major cut in the provincial funding to the institution. So we lost 800 people in that year. There's a reason some of my colleagues on this particular Capstone project went to other positions, is because that was a better place for them to be. And so there were a lot of other things taking up various people's time. We were also doing dramatic restructuring. So there was just a lot of things that were unlikely to get, even though we tried and had meetings and talked about and got positive, you know, that's a good idea, let's just put this on hold for a while. We recognize that this is an institution that tends to be focused on rankings, and I've given you a little screenshot of some of the things that our institution is prioritizing at the time in 2022. Hold that thought, please, because I'm going to tell you something that's not in the slides, just found out this afternoon. And we also recognize this real culture of individuality that is at U of A, where it can be very difficult to get people to come together on things. So those were the hurdles that we thought were likely to need to be overcome. And we were not incorrect. So we can go to the next slide. So this is kind of an assessment of what happened, just to kind of wrap up. What happened was we did not get to form a committee. We have not yet had anyone sign DORA, although I was told in a meeting about a month and a half ago that there are rumors that we might do it. What we have been able to do is have a lot of sidebar conversations in a variety of forums. So the four of us have all been distributed. We have actually been able to talk up things like, why don't you sign DORA, oh Dean of Arts? Or why don't you sign DORA, oh Provost, or Chief Librarian and Vice Provost? So we've been able to sort of seed the idea through a variety of a range of people who are at the tables where maybe that might get some traction. But we're not able to form a committee at all. That's just not going to happen, at least not in the short term. What we do, I am able to say, is that as part of the restructuring, one of the associate VPs has created a position in his portfolio for a performance assessment officer. That position was posted. We promoted it through Research Impact Canada. They actually came to me and said, can you get some people from Research Impact Canada to pay attention to this? So they're recognizing that there is a value there. I have been told that that person, when they're hired, is going to be the lead liaison to Research Impact Canada. So it won't be me anymore. The good news is not off the side of the desk. It's someone who's actually going to be tasked with that kind of connection. I have no idea about where the shortlist, I mean, I think the position was posted. They might be in the review of the candidates right now. So I don't have any other news on that. But there's at least a movement there that we will be not doing this off the side of people's desks.
I have a question. Which office is this new person going to be under?
It will be in the Office of the Vice President of Research, and they will report to the Associate Vice President, whose portfolio is named Strategic Initiatives and Performance Assessment.
It's not Darren Fast, is it?
No, it's not Darren Fast, whose portfolio has the word knowledge mobilization in it. We can talk about what he does not understand what knowledge mobilization is. There's a problem there.
Okay, we can talk about that after.
Yeah, but the associate VP is Andre McDonald. He's very keen, and I've arranged for him to meet with David Phipps in October because David's going to be on campus. So I'm like strategically again trying to seed the ground to get some information in there. So we do have a partial champion. Sorry, so
in October.
Yeah, yeah. We have not been able to do a any kind of mapping and we have not been able to promote that kind of health check of the institution or the business system model. But that is something that possibly that new performance assessment officer would be able to take on when they are hired. And then, ta-da, yesterday at 1 o'clock was launched our new 10-year strategic plan, which I had seen a draft of, but I had not seen the actual plan. And I am very sad to tell you about the research. I'm happy to say that there are indicators in our transformational impact for research that is in the plan. This is on the website, so you can go and look. But I will tell you what the top three key indicators are for the impact of the University of Alberta's research. International ranking, that we will be ranked in the top 50 universities by 2033. This is measurable. That in the U15, we will be ranking in the top 3 of the U15 universities by 2033. And that our annual sponsored research revenue from all sources will move from 550 million to 650 million by 2028. Those are our top 3 indicators. And I can end there. No, I mean, in summary, the course is worth taking. I totally recommend it. It has been incredibly useful. The plan that we came up with was waylaid by a variety of situations that were beyond our control. The argument that you need to have a champion who is well positioned is not gainsaid by anything that we experienced. But I can stop there and we could do questions.